Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this latest edition of the Indica Books Writers Workshop with Otis. For those of you who've been attending in the past, we have changed the name of this series to better reflect what we do here. So this is akin to a writing workshop, a writer's workshop, where this is how it works. So we invite aspiring writers, authors to send in short writing pieces that they want to get feedback on, or they want to discuss at some length on whatever parameters that they want. And we request that people send in short pieces. So even if it is a long piece, a novel, or whatever it is that you're working on, send in 800 to 1,000 words in a PDF document, in a PDF format document, double spaced, Times New Roman font size 11 or 12, so that it's easy to read, mark up, and send back. And for our workshop on Sundays, we ask that you send them by Friday, so that Otis has time to review them and send back his feedback. So he will review your PDF document, he'll mark it up with his comments and brief notes and send them back to you. And then if you have questions, if you want to get some point clarified, or you just want to discuss a certain point or parts of the feedback, then this is the forum where you do that, where Otis picks up each piece that has been sent and he has reviewed, and he'll spend some time walking through it. He'll probably ask you to read a section, a short paragraph from it, and then share his feedback. And that is the opportunity for you to ask questions and get whatever doubts you have clarified, or if you have any points of disagreement, then you can discuss them here. And the rest of us who join, we also listen to Otis's feedback. We take a look at those pieces, and in all, this is what we do to help each of us, all of us, get a better understanding of the finer aspects of writing. So for this week, Otis, you say you have you had 3 pieces, but one of 3 pieces, right? And 2 of them were from one person who I don't think has joined, which leaves us with 1 piece. If that person joins, then excellent. If not, this is going to be a relatively short session. And with that, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's check in with Rose.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Maybe we should figure out, that we can talk about it a little bit, how your approach is to your next draft, because I can give you a little advice about that. I mean, I have some boilerplate advice about how to approach the novel for revision. Doesn't require me reading the novel, I'll tell you, because the first draft is just
very long.
Right. Well, and then it's a draft, and rather than getting, what happens when we look into the second draft of a novel is we get it happens for all of us writers. We get into the weeds, as they say, and we're dealing with it sentence by sentence. We're looking at words. We'll spend 2 years rewriting the first paragraph. I mean, we can do this, but that's not what we should do for the second draft. We really want to look at it in terms of the forest. It's a great time really to try our best, and I'm going to be honest that I have a lot of trouble doing it, but try our best to look at the big picture, look at the arc, make sure, after we're taking a look at the arc of character and the journey of the story, and make sure that we're hitting our marking points in terms of, major dramatic circumstances. Then we want to, that might be the second draft. The third draft is looking at each scene and making sure it does its work. If it's not doing work to make the story go, then it usually has to be cut. Not even usually, it has to be cut. But that's extremely exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's really exciting, and thank you for your tips on writing it. I would really appreciate anything you have to tell me.
Yeah, maybe we should try and figure that out. We'll do something. I think it's well within the parameters of Indic and our relationship that maybe we can get together and meet about your novel and talk about it. I would love to read a few pages, and I would love to see a couple pages in here. But the issue with the novel is we don't want to just talk about, particularly in the second draft, we don't want to talk about small parts. We want to talk about the big picture. So maybe we can be in touch and try and work on that. That's great news. Ram, how are you?
Yeah.
Checking with Ram.
Hi.
Ram, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey, I wanted you to know that in one of the last episodes, I shared a little bit at the start of my novel. Everyone jumped on my prose style like badgers. They were like badgers attacking like Tasmanian devils. And I took every single comment you gave me. I took every comment. So thank you very much for that.
No, it was really good to see your writing.
Oh, well, it's so interesting. I love, Ram, you said, you worked with a lot of containers and you're like, this is on a ship. And I realized, because I use the word deck in there, and from my perspective, I'm just talking about a deck in front of a house. It's very common in the US to have a deck, right? We just call it a deck. It's like a porch, right? But when you read deck, because you're so familiar with the ships, and then you had the container, which the container is something that gets shipped around, you put it together with a ship. And that was so interesting that, we don't take that into account. So I mean, it wasn't that hard for me to figure it out. I just, you have to give up the things that you start with. I mean, I had this thing, like I wanted his office to be in a container that gets shipped around the world. And I just made it a different mobile office on a trailer, right? So because I don't want people to think that they're on a ship. I want people to be secure about where they are. They're on dry land. But I found it very interesting. And I took comments. I took all the comments that I got, actually. So it really helped me rework those first pages. So I really appreciate that. Though I understand, and I always have, on the other side of the knife, there is pain. Okay. And Ram, how's your writing going?
The last week I was busy with Diwali and recovering from Diwali, so I have not written this week. I wrote a couple of poems, but that's about it. But the coming weeks, yes, I have a plan charted out, and I will be writing more. And you'll get to see some part of it. You don't have a choice.
Okay, good. What do you mean you were recording?
Sorry. So what I'm working on a business thriller novel, which is about 35,000 words through. I have maybe another 30,000 words to go, and I am a little behind schedule on that. That's what I'll be working on.
Okay, great. Okay, let's Pranshu, I think we'll talk about your review. Let me get it up on the page. But I also I think Abhinav, maybe we'll involve you a little bit with this, because I think with the reviews, you reach out as an organization, you reach out and you want to have reviews. And Pranshu, is this a review that's associated with this sort of reaching out from Indic?
Not from Indic, but from another. There's a magazine called Reviewer in Delhi. So they keep on sending some books all the time. And that's actually one of the reasons I wrote in the first line. You thought it was sarcasm that because of COVID, I was not able to visit. So I wasn't. So they sent it to my mom's place in Delhi, and so I was not able to read. So.
Oh, okay. So you truly were thankful for COVID.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't read the first two. So I started with the third one, basically. Which. And the reason why I chose the third one was also because you see that there were the couple of other ones virtually in the same field, like stories on Mahabharata, on these and the early days, you could say, the first the Adi Parv of Mahabharata. So that you basically, so I was trying to put all three, but I was just wanted to write about this because this was a very good. My first impression was he wrote it very well. And the gentleman, he's actually a comic book artist. That's how he began. So he has this very nice illustrations through, and he kept the whole novel basically. This novel, and I read the first two. So, but this entire novel is basically novel to the readers of Mahabharata. Like all the stories are like for the the final year of graduation, right? The final year of college before the princes graduate. And he has created the stories out of his imagination, but they keep in with the ethos of Mahabharata, the canon of the characters, as the characters will develop as you see the characters developing in the real Mahabharata. So that's why I like the stories very well. And then, he did use two characters as his not really point of view. The narration is still authors, and I corrected that. Actually, I didn't. After I sent it to you, I was reading it myself again, and I did some corrections. There are 2 point of action characters. So one being Sahadev, the youngest Pandav, who's generally ignored because he's just literally seen as the runt of the litter. Like even his mother told his wife, look after my son Sahadev like your own son. So he's telling his own mother is telling his wife, look after my son like as if he's your own son, right? So Sahadev is the point of action here, which is very nicely brought out. He didn't actually assign something extra. We already know some of these are the qualities Sahadev does display along the epic itself, and both his older brother Yudhishthir and his wife drop the comments on those through the epic, because he hardly gets any footage, any verbiage in the epic.
Okay, let me interrupt you though. Let me interrupt you. So what I'm going to try and steer us towards is I think this is what. So, and this is where I'm drawing in you, Abhinav. Like, I think we've talked before, but we haven't followed through. And when I say we, I mean you, Abhinav. That was a joke. But I wonder, I think, do you have a page, some kind of web page for this workshop specifically, or is it just a link within something else? And I'm getting yeah.
So on the Indica website, there is a page where we have listed out the details of this program, including how people can engage with us. There are actually 2 pages. One is for this regular workshop, and the other one is for the reviewers program. So if people outside of their writing pieces, if they want to send in reviews, we have one page for that. Both of them point to this Zoom series.
Okay. Well, so I think it would be a good idea to put examples of work. You know how you talk about sort of a shared philosophy but I think so. I think that that's important to have that reflected, but also maybe to have either links or examples of something that you consider to be the kind of work you want to have submitted, so like Pranshu, you're saying that there is this magazine called Reviewer, this is very, very true in the U.S. So when I was coming up through the ranks, and it's still true for me now, when I am looking to publish a story, I am basically obligated, and it's a lot of work, to read literary magazines to see what kind of work they publish. So every publishing house, basically, every magazine, they have a certain kind of standard that they are looking for, because they, like Indic, right, they have some kind of holistic view about what they want to take in and put out, and they can be selective about what they're choosing. So it can be advantageous, like with this work, and actually the other two works that I have for today too, I was thinking basically the same thing. Is like, does this review look like the reviews that you're submitting to the magazine? I don't know. If it does, there is the possibility that you simply send it to them, right? I mean, they might publish it. If they wanted reviews, like if this was a review in the New York Times, I'm going to guarantee they're not going to accept it.
Yeah.
So it's like every magazine, like I think that Abhinav, I guess I'm getting to the idea that, like, we're looking at this end product of publishing these works that we're working on. And I think it could be helpful to writers to have some examples of published work. And it would be helpful to me even too, to see the kinds of publishing, and the venues that you might be looking for, or even, more expansively, Abhinav, like when we're thinking about novels too, like the Indic Academy, Indic has a kind of vision. I would love to see maybe links to, books that kind of fit into that quality too, so that people can come and see the kind of work that you're looking to cultivate, the kind of review, how that review is going to be presented, because all of these things end up being important, right? I mean, each of us individually, like when I submit something for work, I am projecting, I'm building my reputation, right? So, and also as a group, you're building your reputation. So
correct. We have actually, we are building out a dedicated website for Indica books. So I think that will be a good place to collect this content and have a section under that website for this reviewers workshop, writers workshop.
Mm-hmm. And then I think it would be really great to have some examples. I mean, yeah. Sometimes people develop templates, and we could develop a template. I could help you develop a template if I saw an example of work that you thought was good, right? I mean, I'm sure you could do that too. Basically say, this is really good, and then all you do is then you take a template from that. You say, in the first paragraph, it's going to deal with this thing. In the second paragraph, it's going to do this. Third, et cetera, et cetera. The truth about writing, the thing about, for all of us, I think we get to a point where we realize that writing, we start off writing thinking about sentences, which means that we write one word, then the next, and we basically create this linear thing, right? But when we get, when we sort of rise up to the next level, we start to see that what we're really dealing with are patterns of information. And those patterns are actually represented in short form. The first pattern is not the sentence and not words, but paragraphs. The first paragraph deals with this. The second paragraph deals with this. The third, we know what a 5-paragraph essay looks like. The 5-paragraph essay is not over-taught for no reason. It works. Like there's a reason why. There was a reason, right? There's reason first, and then there's dogma afterwards, right? There's something true, and it makes sense, and then it becomes dogma, and then we all get oppressed by it, and we turn into automatons, and that's the end of the story. But so I think that would be useful, because so for me, Branchu, the review here doesn't feel to me from the reviews I read, and I don't read a lot of reviews, I'll admit. But from the reviews I read, this isn't essentially like them in terms of the way the author situates themselves with the book. The reviewer usually sits kind of aloofly from the book. They don't become personally involved. They have this sort of omniscient reviewer's consciousness that is very careful about their own biases.
Right.
Right. And so that's what I'm used to seeing in a review, but I also don't really know the form because we have reviews on Amazon. We obviously have, a kind of people's reviewing thing that we can do whatever we want. Which brings me back, Abhinav, to the sense of having some kind of standard and then recognizing that there's something like you have a group, and to train up your group to write something that conforms to a standard that's effective is going to be a better policy, right, for the group than to write things that don't have that sort of accepted form. As good as it is, it's like any review in Amazon, and then people can click, was it helpful or was it not helpful, and they'll do like that, and you'll discover something slowly. But we want to accelerate that process, I think.
Correct. Yes, we should, I think. And it's good that you brought this up because it reminded me that, this website project has been undergoing for some time. And I think it's probably at a point where we can publicly roll out the website and add this writers section to it and build it over the coming weeks.
I think it could be pretty exciting, and maybe you and I should talk about it because I think people are working on different things. So like we might want to include some published work on there. Maybe some people are working on short stories, and we could have examples of short stories that are certain types of short stories. We could have examples of mysteries. I would love to see a collection of novels or nonfiction, all the things that you think work that are published. Then this is how we all become better writers, is we read, and we read, and we have this driving desire to be included in these groups, these magazines or whatever, and be published. So we both read them, we see what they want, and they will accept, and then we, through a great deal of pain, modify our own self so that we can be a part of their publishing group, that magazine. So,
right. And you were you actually picked on that writer's bias, because you see, my mother always says, don't write about write a review about anything if you don't have anything nice to say about them. So there were like 5 or 6 books in this same category, sort of aimed at the, maybe like 12 to 20, 12 and above, and on Mahabharat. And some of them are definitely not for children even, and so that's why this one was the only one I would say which was like really nice, and which was like to the point of being like about the young adults as well as above. And my bias, yes, you're right, my bias was showing through, because I like this. And the earlier version I sent you was basically trying to compare it with the other 5 without naming them, and you said that it came out very disjointed because I was so, and
yeah. Well, the other thing too is, Abhinav, you'll see this. Look at the magazines that you want, your group to submit reviews to. Take a look at what they have there. What they're going to probably have is they're going to have some short reviews, longer reviews. This review is 6 pages long. That's a long review. If you're going to have a magazine taking an unknown writer, they're probably not going to take. So the more words we put on the page, the more reasons we give them to not take our work. So I would strongly suggest writing short works. Almost every magazine takes something called, I think it's called filler. it's not, they want something, 250 to 500 words. I think that's not a bad aspiration. Like when we jump in, when we're not familiar, I mean, I cut my teeth in writing by writing short stories, not by writing a novel. I cut my teeth by writing something short that I thought was more manageable. It proved not necessarily to be the case, as that Abhinav probably knows, the writer had said, "Sorry, I've written you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write it more briefly." Right? It's very hard to do that short work, but that's a good aspiration. You might find, Abhinav, if we build up the website, we might find that there's 250 word reviews, 500 word reviews, 800 word reviews. There's going to be a couple different categories that fit into the magazine's needs. And I'm going to tell you something about writers. There are a lot of writers who want to write a really long review because they want to make a huge splash into the scene and they want to be acknowledged as an unrivaled genius. So that means that there's a lot of opportunity to write those shorter pieces.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the main thing here, Pranshu. I mean, I would just say, if you think that there's a venue that writes in this style, it's a very free-flowing style. To me, it doesn't have the kinds of forms and structures that I'm used to from a review. And again, I'm not that familiar. I would have to look at a review or even look at an entire magazine of reviews to see what structure they really want to draw that out. I don't have time to do that work, but you should. Like, read the magazine, the reviewer magazine, and say, and discern for yourself, what is this magazine doing in terms of form? You want to produce something like that and then send it to them.
I've seen a 38-page review in that magazine.
You see a 30-page review?
38-page review about another novel, like somebody had. So they sort of publish that style, like in a lot of detail and everything. So, but yeah, again, it's specific to that magazine.
Well, interesting you bring that up, Pranshu. I remember. So there's this writer, Yevgeny Morozov. He wrote a couple of books on technology, including Click Here to Save Everything, I think was his last book, and The Net Delusion, I think was his first one. And he wrote a review of this book by this lady, this academic, who wrote this book called Surveillance Capitalism. It's a massive 600-page book. And he wrote a review which was about more than 10,000 words long. So it's like, if you don't want to read the book, you can actually read the review, which is going to take you, almost as much time.
Yeah, Yagniseni, Pratibha Ray, she wrote it originally in Odia, and Pradeep Bhattacharya actually wrote a review. And the review is like around 100 pages long, which was published in English. So people actually read that review rather than the novel itself a lot more often.
Right, and that's very often what people do with the New York Review of Books. I mean, when I've even thought of trying to keep, I just don't care about going to cocktail parties and talking about books. But for people who do want to seem well-read, they read the New York Review of Books, they know about all that's happening, and then they can discuss it at cocktail parties. I mean, it's just another, but Abhinav, you're saying something very important that I want to underscore. When you were just telling us about that long review, how did you describe the person who wrote it? You described them as an author who's already written books. So, like, yes, there's a big difference between having a review who's written by an author who's well known, who's written on the subject of the book. Then they write a review, and it's long, it's exhaustive, because they're already an established expert on the, Salman Rushdie writes a review of what someone else's novel. People read it because it's Salman Rushdie, right? Yeah. I mean, we are dealing personally when we're writers. We are dealing with our personal brand, and one of the things that we need to recognize is that we might not have one. So like we're not when the story by Otis Haschemyer comes over the editor's desk, they're like, Otis who? They don't know me. They don't know you. However, there are magazines that will say, Salman Rushdie, would you please write a review of this book? And then they pay them to do it. There's a big difference. So it's like everything else in life. It's a big pyramid scheme, and we got to pay our dues down here if we want to rise up there. But
very true.
We help ourselves by understanding where we are on that pyramid, and understanding where we can get our foot in the door. What we're trying to get an editor who's not likely to publish us, but these things are also changing, and I don't want to get too adamant about this, but obviously on the internet, there can be an online magazine that publishes everything, right? And they don't care about that's what Amazon Books is doing, right? So anyone can write their review on Amazon Books. They will have an unlimited number of reviews there. Is that what you want to be a part of, right? Is someone going to find your review in 1,000 reviews, or do you want to be in a place that's curated and more selective and be doing work that's at a higher level?
Correct.
These are questions we got to ask ourselves.
Correct. By the way, I just saw that Mohit has joined. He's an attendee, not a panelist yet. I've clicked promoting him to panelist. He joined a few minutes late, I think.
And who is it?
Mohit, I think, isn't he the person you said had sent in a couple of pieces?
What I have is Pranam.
Oh, okay, got it.
So
okay.
Maybe
my bad.
I sent you the email for Pranam, and maybe if you can, but I'm not sure that we're going to get them today. But Branshu, I think that's the big thing. I think you can clean up this work, and you can and you can submit it to Amazon, for example. And it's a long review on Amazon. I don't think people are going to read the whole review on Amazon, because I don't think people are going to read that many words in a review on Amazon. You might be able to send it to that magazine, and maybe they publish it. I don't know what they're looking for. And I also think that that's fine. I mean, I think the real thing for you, Branshu, and for all of us as writers, is that let's do it. This is you're experimenting, and everything that we do as writers is an experiment on our long journey to our final reconciliation, basically. So it's like there isn't some perfect thing that we're going to write. We write this now. It's what we write now. And then the next day we write something new, and that's what we write that day. And then we write something else. And we move along on our journey as writers, as artists, as human beings. So I think that this is good. Clean it up, send it out someplace, write a new review, keep writing. The main thing is that we keep writing, every single day. Hemingway said, "No work is ever finished, only abandoned." I think that those are good words for us all to remember, no matter what stage of writer we are at. We all become perfectionists, but we don't have time to be perfectionists. I don't think.
Great. Yep.
But yeah, for me personally, with this review, I would like to know some of the nuts and bolts a little bit more. I would like to know this author. I would like to know something about the author. I'd like to know something about the series and the books.
Right. I haven't read the series, so I couldn't comment. Yeah. That's why
you can look it up. Just look it up. You don't have to read it to write about it. It's not good. And then keep your comments about the book a lot briefer. I would, just say, I mean, I think the most compelling thing you say in there is that basically the book is true to the canon, but also develops new stories.
New stories, yeah. And that was the exciting part of this book, was that it had basically all the stories were new. You had never read them before, so he has literally created new stories, setting in the same setting, and then keeping them with in tune with the actual development of characters. And he doesn't make anybody too. I mean, there's no departure of character literally happening here.
Yeah, I would honestly, I would make that point, and I would probably not make any other points. The point about the two action protagonists or whatever, that's kind of a writerly thing. Most people who are
that's the other thing I would say, like, the two other things which sold me this book was these underused characters, like those. I mean, most of the writers, like 99% of the writers, will ignore these two characters, and he used them as their point of action characters.
Right. I don't. People just want a good story, so we just keep that in mind. But I would make the one point. I would give us the background. I would make the one point, and then I would make your recommendation about to read it, and the comment that you want to go back and read the other books in the series also speaks highly. And then try and just keep it short. I mean, we're trying. Abhinav, you'll once you see the venues that you want people to be submitting their reviews to, then that will direct us in terms of the length of those reviews too. But we always want to keep in mind that unless we have some kind of brand basically behind us, shorter is better. Less is more, because
less is more.
Because
I agree.
I mean, honestly, I don't. James Joyce has quite a brand, but I have not read Ulysses, so I'm going to admit that to you all right now. We don't always read the longest books. I did read, not Crime and Punishment, War and Peace twice, but that was a great story. I did skip the philosophy about history. Skip it.
Yeah, two of the longest books I've read. One was Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and I wish I could get that part of my life back. The other one was.
I will say I actually stopped it midway. It's one of those ones which I have not. It's
I
like in the middle
finished
of
it because I didn't
like,
want to be one of those people who stopped the book in midway, because and the latter half turned out to be like completely redeeming and all. I read the entire book and I was like, oh my god, anything would have been better than that, but I still read that. And the other one was Vikram Seth's A Suitable Boy, which is not a bad book, but still at 1,400 pages, it's about 1,000 pages too long.
Right. Well, in the movies, they have, the movie comes out, it's really popular, and then they try and rebrand it as the director's cut. The director's cut is always worse than the first one. So,
yes, like there's a director's cut floating around of Lord of the Rings, and I thought Lord of the Rings was at the 3 hours a piece for each of the three. I think was way too long.
It's 12 hours, and I actually like the director's cut. There's these bunch of other jokes, right?
Okay.
There's like some of the Peter Jackson's humor is there, and that is there. Like, and so
director's commentary I don't mind, and I have watched.
No. His humor is coming through Pippin and the other two hobbits. You have 4 hobbits there, really, right? So the other 2 hobbits actually have a lot more, which he basically trimmed in his cinematic release, theatrical release.
I'm going to draw the line at discussions about hobbits for myself, and I'm going to wish you all well. But I think we should work on some of those templates, and I think it would be great. Maybe the rest of you can chime in too. Maybe we can find some way to coordinate that. If you have examples of books that you think serves a certain kind of thing, why don't we make some recommendations of some published works or or the kinds of reviews that seem to work, maybe we can gather that from the group. I think that would be really beneficial. I'm committed personally to having you find your publishers. I want you to find your publishers. I want Rohini to get this book done, and I want to see this book with some covers on it, and not have it just say personally published by Rohini.
Thank you. Yes, I would love that too.
Yeah. So let's get this done. Let's get it done. That's all. We'll do the hard work. I'm trying to do the hard work for myself, and as I've told you before, it is hard. It is brutal to do this work. Rohini, you're still in the good part though. You just still need to work on that arc. It's all fine. Draft 2, draft 3, even draft 4 are going to be there easy. Draft 5, when you have to start cutting things out, that's when the pain begins.
Ram, did you have a question?
No, I think Rohini is saying something. I'll wait for her to finish.
No, I was not saying anything. I agree. Nothing's easy. It's hard.
So two things. Sorry, please go ahead, ma'am.
Tough. I'm finished. Please go ahead.
So two things I had wanted to say regarding reviews. So one of my gold standards for review, there was this book by Amitav Ghosh, who's as Otis, you might have heard of him. He's a very well-known popular author in India, and he wrote a book called Jungle Nama, which was about the tigers in the Sundarbans. And Shuktara Lal, who is herself a boutique publisher, she wrote a review of that. I will hunt out the link and I'll share it on the group. That's a brilliant review. It's a very short review, and I think it sort of fits in one Facebook post, but it's a beautiful review. So every time I write a review, ever since I read that, I try and see if elements like that I have been able to bring out. That's a brilliant review. And something else I had wanted to say, I forgot it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's also.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think too, and Abhinav, I don't know how possible it is to put something out to that group, and then you can send it to me also, and I would love to be able to we can read and discuss some of these published works too and why they work. So if everyone has them available, then that might be also a way to sort of direct the group too. But yeah, Ram, that sounds like a great idea. Send that around to everyone.
I found the link. I put it on the chat. I will probably put it on the WhatsApp group and email as well. It's a very nice review. And the second point on editing, yes, I just a little bit of a personal experience. One of the plays I had written that was adapted by a UK-based amateur theatre group, and it went through 8 rounds of editing. And this is after I had done about 2 rounds of editing. I sent it to the director, and then she read it, and then back and forth. It went through about 8 rounds of editing. And even the story that I had submitted for the anthology, that went through about 8 rounds of editing before it was accepted and finalized by Aditi. It went through 8 rounds of editing, and I had written, I think, about 6,000 words in the first draft, 6 or 7,000 words, and in the final cut, only about 2,000 words of that needed.
Yeah, if you think about it, if you run a marathon, you ran many more miles than a marathon over the course of the year to prepare for that.
Yeah, true.
And the book is a little bit like a marathon.
Yeah.
Yes, it's long. Yes, you're reading it all, but it's not all the training that went into being able to run a marathon.
Yeah.
You don't get to see that part, but well, thank you all. Appreciate you, and yeah, I look forward to more work. And let's also great, maybe to add to the website too. when people in the group do publish things, then it would be great to see those show up, so that other people in the group can access them and see them as examples and compete against them.
And that reminds me, I am going to be sending in pieces, I think, almost every week for the next several weeks. So I can lay claim to at least a 20-minute slot every week, and I hope others do too. And one in passing, some concluding comments from my side are that one of the points of this workshop is to have writers, authors, and anyone who's interested in writing, obviously, is who's sending in pieces as someone who's interested in writing and improving their craft of writing, is to send in these pieces and then use the feedback as a conscious as part of a conscious effort to improve your writing skills, right? So to that end, the feedback that you get, either you find it useful or you don't. If you don't find it useful, then there must be a reason why you don't find it useful. So I would encourage all of you and anyone who's going to be watching this video later on to ask questions why you disagree with the feedback or why you think it is not useful. And if it is useful, then your subsequent pieces, your subsequent submissions should reflect some amount of or some level of effort that has gone into rectify some of the things that were identified as needing improvement. So one of the two has to happen. Otherwise, it is what Dilbert says, the definition of insanity is to keep repeating the same thing and expect different results, right? Unless and until the third possibility is that we all consider ourselves to be perfect writers, Charles Dickens and
well, I can't read, so even Charles Dickens it's not perfect for everybody.
Or V.S. Naipaul, personified, and we are looking for validation of our own greatness in these workshops. In which case, yes, that's also perfectly acceptable. We can learn from your writing pieces, but I doubt that is the case. So again, my point is that one of the two things have to happen. Either you disagree with the feedback and you articulate why it is it is not valid, it is superfluous, or you agree with it, in which case your subsequent pieces have to reflect that. And I think I often enough see that not happening. The same kinds of feedback that Otis gave a year back, I see people submitting pieces with those same kinds of mistakes or drawbacks, shortfalls happening. So that begs the question, what exactly is it about the feedback that is not getting through? Why? And I think that is an important part, because improvement comes through conscious learning, right? Almost any text on learning how to become better or becoming an expert will tell you that after some point it has to come through conscious effort in a few narrow areas where you lack. So my 2.5-minute rant.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's leave it with that. There's nothing better to end something with than a rant, and so it's also we are, as writers, we're at different stages, but I do personally encourage you. I mean, we're all here. We're here. We get this social group, but we're not really finally trying to write for each other. We are trying to write for this other goal. And a good, honestly, you can think what you want about, what I say. Do always, when recognize when someone reads your work, I do try to give you what I think is not dogma and even not boilerplate. My boilerplate, the boilerplate that I have, I guess, is based on my human response to your work. I try and make my comments basically I'm just a human being trying to respond to your work. That's where I start. I'm confused. I don't feel engaged. I'm thinking about doing my laundry. That's where I start with my criticism. I am skilled enough at this point, having done it for so many years, that I can give you directions about where you can go to maybe solve these problems. But I always start with the problems of, I'm confused, I'm not engaged, I don't care. Simple things, you know. I don't want to read on, you know. I mean, I do, but I don't want to. I don't feel driven to. If those things are not happening, then I'm sort of recognizing that there's a problem. Then I use the language that's in this midsection saying, what's the conflict? Why do I care about what happens to this character or not? You know, that's when I come up with this stuff. It's actually, we need to write things that draw upon our audience, that achieve a kind of emotional response from our audience. And that's where my comments are generally directed. I think if we're not responding to those things, it's because sometimes we have in our mind as writers, and I know it very well, that I have what I want to write. I want to do something. That's prominent on our minds. And so we're all about doing what we want. But we have to understand that our writing is a bridge between us and the reader, and then we meet in the writing. And the way we write has to reflect a meeting of people. It can't just be I. It can't just be me. It has to be a meeting. It's a bridge. And it's not only is it a bridge, it's a very delicate bridge. It's a bridge that's created out of this sort of sense of consciousness that the writer is producing with their words. It's a shared consciousness. It's a very, very delicate and wonderful place, and a powerful place if we can achieve it. It takes a lot of work, but we just go onward. Rohini, I'm so excited about your news. I'm really, really excited. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't rest on your laurels now. That's the main thing. You have to stay inspired. You have to keep the fire burning. Get it done.
Yes, of course.
Every single day. I know
That's
you
for
are.
sure. That's for sure.
No. What Rohini brings to the writing process, and I think this is good for all of us as writers to understand, is that we have to have this little bit of we have to have a bit of the warrior in us. We have to have a little bit of a warrior. We need to have that fire and that drive. And I know this is something that Rohini has, and the rest of us can learn from. And with that, I think we should say so long. Until next time. Oh,
thank you, everyone.